Welcome to the Football Film Room Show. I'm Nick Kehoe, and we've got another great episode for you today. We're going to talk about Jeremiyah Love, do a deep dive into his game, tell you which team should be interested, and tell you why, quite frankly, you can take your positional value arguments when it comes to Love and throw them out the window. But before we do any of that, I want to go back to 1977, talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Now, back in the 70s, that was the era of Tom Landry, Roger Staubach. The Cowboys were one of the best teams in the NFL, arguably the best team in the NFC throughout that decade. They had won a Super Bowl in 1971. They'd been to 3 Super Bowls by the time that 1977 had rolled around. But in the previous 2 seasons, 1975 and 76, they had lost a Super Bowl to the Steelers, and then they lost in the divisional round to the Rams. And both times, their feeling was that the run game, that was kind of the culprit. We just didn't have enough there. So in the 1977 draft, they traded 3 picks in order to take Tony Dorsett. Now, Dorsett was the Heisman Trophy winner out of Pitt, and he was a game changer at the running back position. He had the ability to break off big runs, create those explosive plays that the Cowboys felt they were lacking. So they took him, they brought him in, thinking he could change the complexion of their team. But Dorsett didn't enter that season as the starting running back. Part of that was he just had to earn his way. That's how the Cowboys did things. But another big reason for that was that the Cowboys, Tom Landry, the way he did things, the way they designed their plays, you were supposed to do what you were told. If a run play was designed to go to the left and hit in the B gap, that's where you as a running back were supposed to go. But Tony Dorsett didn't run that way. He ran to what he could see, in his own words. And sometimes that meant that even though the play might be designed to hit the B gap to the left, the true opening is going to be cutting it back to the other side. And there was a point early in that season, about a month in, where the Cowboys were getting ready to play the Cardinals. And in practice that week, going against a scout team, Dorsett took a run and then cut it back behind the center, and he got chewed out by his coaches. The hole will never break back behind the center, they told him. Do not cut it back. Run where the play is designed to go. Again, the Cowboys were machine-like in their approach. And so, of course, Sunday rolls around. They play the Cardinals. Dorsett's in the game. The same play that was called in practice where he got yelled at by his coaches, the same play is called, and Dorsett takes the ball, starts where the play is designed to go, and then he sees an opening where he can cut it back, just like the coaches said wouldn't happen in an actual game, and took it to the house from 77 yards away. The Cowboys would go on to win that game, and according to Dorsett, that very next day, Tom Landry came in and he told his offensive lineman, hey, Dorsett runs differently. What we're going to have to do is just get a hat on your guy, stay on him as long as possible, and he's going to run to what he sees. He's going to run to daylight. And the move paid off. The Cowboys went from 12th in rushing yards per game the year before to 4th in 1977. Tony Dorsett would go on to win Rookie of the Year, and the Cowboys would win the Super Bowl. In fact, the Cowboys would make it back to the Super Bowl the next year as well. And on top of that, they'd go on to play in 5 NFC Championship games in Dorsett's first 6 years. He ended up in the Hall of Fame. But the big point here is that the Cowboys thought they had a way of doing things schematically. They thought that it made the most sense to say, hey, here's where the play is designed. Doesn't matter what your name is, who you are as a running back, you're going to run it the same way as everyone else. And then Dorsett kind of opened their eyes, kind of made them realize, you know what, we can expand what we're doing. If we let him run, if we let him use his special talents, he can add on to our offense. We can do things we didn't even plan to do. He can make adjustments within each play to make that play work better than it would have if we just ran it exactly as designed. But the reason I tell you that story is because Jeremiyah Love can do the same thing for whatever team he goes to. Now, he's a different runner than Tony Dorsett, but his ability to expand an offense, to allow an offense to do something that other teams just aren't doing, or to allow a team to do things that they didn't even think that they could do or they didn't know that they wanted to do. His ability to do that is similar to Dorsett's. The value, the impact he can have on a team can be the same as what Dorsett's was. Love is a special, special player. There's really nothing he can't do as a running back. He can fit into any scheme. You can run zone with him, gap, power, duo, whatever the heck you want. He's good in the passing game. You can design plays for him, screens, swing passes, get him the ball in space, and he'll make defenses pay. Even more impressive, though, is that you can line him up in the slot. You can line him up on the perimeter, and he's got really good receiving skills. There were times when I was watching him on film and I'd see him aligned in the slot, and I couldn't tell the difference between him and a typical slot receiver. Didn't look like a running back out there. When he has to stay in and help out with protection, he's also really good there. Saw him deliver some punishing blows to safeties and linebackers, scan coast to coast, pick up blitzers. Obviously, you probably want him having the ball in his hands or getting out into routes, but if he needs to stay in and protect, he can absolutely do that. But he's a versatile running back. Now, as a runner, the things that make him special are that he's very quick twitch. He's got that 4.36 40 time, but really one of the most impressive things about him is that he can be running full speed and then cut on a dime. He can change directions when the defense isn't expecting it. And because of those things, he's a threat to take it to the house from anywhere. But he's also very good at the nuances of the position. He does a great job of pressing the hole, setting up his blockers, reading defenders, cutting back when he needs to. He has a good feel for knowing when you hit the hole and when you need to be a little more patient. I thought last year, as the season wore on, he became a lot more patient, where he'd kind of let the play develop, and then he has such quick bursts and quick acceleration that as soon as he makes a decision to go, he can go. But he creates yards, right? There will be times when there's not much to a play. It's not particularly blocked well, and he can get skinny through the hole and pick up 5 yards when it was only blocked for 1. Like I said, his ability to set up his blockers and read defenders, that allows him to pick up yards when it doesn't seem like there are any there. But then you get him in the open field, and he's got this unbelievable spin move that just makes defenders miss. Again, he's just an explosive player. And because of all that, he's a game changer. He can elevate any offense. And it's because of that reason and because of the versatility that he brings that I don't think you look at him and say, well, he's a running back, and he's only a running back, and that position we don't want to draft 3rd overall, 4th overall, 5th overall, too many cautionary tales. And to that I just say, with a player like Love, you have to throw that out the window. I agree that with any other draft class, if you just have your standard running backs coming out in the draft, you don't just take a guy because he's the best running back in the top 10 or whatever. But with a player like Love, because of what he can do for an offense, because of the ways he can elevate it, because of the versatility he brings, which is so important on both sides of the ball in today's NFL, I don't think you should just view him as a running back. You should view him as a versatile weapon for your offense. And by the way, this isn't just my opinion. I think the general consensus is that most around the NFL view Love in the same way. I think you can certainly look at the Saints and the Chiefs, who are picking 8th and 9th in this year's draft. Both were in the market for running backs. If they thought Jeremiyah Love was going to drop all the way to them, you wouldn't have seen them go out and sign Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker. So I do think he's going to go early, and it's just a matter of, does he get out of the top 5, really? Because if we're going through the draft here, we know the Raiders are going to pick Fernando Mendoza number 1. The Jets have Breece Hall. Franchise tagged him. Doesn't seem like a situation where they'll tag and then trade him. It seems like they want him around for the long haul, at very least for the start of 2026. So that leaves the 3rd overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals. And you haven't really heard a lot of connections between the Cardinals and Love. I don't know if that's because people just don't want that to happen. No one seems to want the good players to go to the Cardinals and just fade into anonymity out in the desert. Most of the talk has been about the Titans taking Love with the 4th overall pick, or the Giants getting Love with the 5th overall pick. But to me, if you're the Cardinals, why wouldn't you take Love? Mike LaFleur is the head coach there. As we all know, LaFleur views the run game as foundational to his offense. So who better to be the first draft pick of his tenure in Arizona than Jeremiyah Love? And especially for the Cardinals, who last year were 31st in rushing yards per game. I know they lost James Conner early in the season to injury, and injuries in general definitely played a role, but their leading rusher last year had 333 yards. So they could use an every down back, believe me. And if you look at the Cardinals' playmakers, they would have Love at running back, Trey McBride at tight end, Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver. Whoever's going to come in and be the young quarterback stepping into that situation, whether it's this year, whether they trade up to draft Ty Simpson, or whether they wait till the 2027 draft, they're going to be entering a very, very good situation. They're going to be entering an offense that has the run as the foundation of it and lots of different ways to attack defenses. So to me, no one's talking about the Cardinals. I'm not saying that they're going to pick Love, but it would make a lot of sense. Now, the Titans pick 4th overall. If the Cardinals do not pick Love, they obviously make a ton of sense as well. The Titans last year were 30th in rushing, 25th in yards after contact. And that's one thing about Jeremiyah Love. He is great in the yards after contact department. he doesn't go down just with arm tackles and whatnot. So it doesn't matter if you're in the open field or if he's just sneaking through small crevices in the offensive line. He's not going to go down upon first contact, and that would absolutely be a huge boost to the Titans' run game. Now, the Titans did have an 1,000-yard rusher in Tony Pollard last year, and if they drafted Love, I guess they could go in two different directions. They could move on from Pollard, or they could have a little bit of a 1-2 punch, at least for this first 2026 season, kind of like what Notre Dame was able to do with Love and Jadarian Price. But either way, the presence of Love would be such a great fit for the Titans because of their quarterback, Cam Ward. Because Love is so versatile, because you can line him up in the slot, line him up on the perimeter, you can create an offense with him where you're giving indicators to your quarterback pre-snap on a lot of plays. Because remember, if you put your running back on the perimeter, how the defense responds will tell you a lot about what coverage they're going to play. If they match up to him with a corner, probably going to be some kind of zone. I know it's not 100%, but probably going to be zone. If they send a linebacker out there or put a safety over him, probably leaning more towards man coverage, and just makes the job easier for the quarterback if you have those clues, if you have those tells, those indicators before the play. And then on top of that, it's not just something that you're sending a running back out there just to create an indicator. If you have a good matchup with Love on a linebacker who can't hang with him or a safety who's not good in coverage, you can actually attack that matchup. And to me, that's such a valuable thing for a young quarterback like Cam Ward. The other thing when it comes to quarterback development is that it is really nice to have friends. Every quarterback needs friends, but particularly young quarterbacks who are developing. And when you can just turn and give the ball to your running back and the offense can continue to move forward, it helps you settle into games. It helps you realize, hey, I don't need to make a big play every time I drop back because we've got this consistent, steady force in the run game. Again, nice to have that type of running back. And then, of course, being able to check the ball down to your running back and not have him just catch it and get tackled, but have him make defenders miss. You can make some safe throws 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage, and that guy can take it to the house. That's going to change your desire, your willingness to check the ball down. And that's something that Cam Ward needs. Because Ward, one of his biggest issues is probably hanging onto the ball too much, trying to turn every play into a home run. He needs to be coached up into just get the ball out of your hands, keep the offense moving forward, don't take any negative plays. And the first time he dumps the ball off to Love and sees him take it 20 yards on a safe 3-yard, 4-yard throw, it's going to click in his brain. He's going to say to himself, maybe I should do that more often. However, if the Titans don't decide to take Love, again, I think they'd be crazy not to, but you never know. If the Titans make that 4th overall pick and the name they call is not Jeremiyah Love, the Giants should have their card turned in within 30 seconds, ready to make the pick for Love. Because for the same reasons that Love makes sense for the Titans, he makes sense for the Giants. Jackson Dart, in a similar vein to Cam Ward, he tries to turn every play into a home run, and he's going to need help. He's going to need to be able to lean on his running game. He's going to need to be encouraged to just dump the ball off, take those short completions. Don't try to do too much. He's going to need those indicators too. It's going to be really helpful for him to have Jeremiyah Love out on the perimeter giving you a pre-snap indicator of what the coverage is going to be. And just think about what the Giants have done this offseason. They brought in Isaiah Likely at tight end. They went out and got defensive tackle turned fullback Patrick Ricard from the Ravens as well. And this all tells you a couple things. One, they're going to be looking to run the ball. They're probably going to play a fair amount of 21 personnel with their running back Ricard and Likely on the field. They're going to try to make the run game foundational to what they do on offense. Jackson Dart and his design runs, as much as I wince every time I see him running because I'm waiting for another concussion to happen. He's a real weapon with his legs. The Giants are not just going to make him a pocket passer, I don't think. I think they are going to use his legs. They are going to find ways to use him in the run game. And so having Dart back there with Love, combine that with Likely and Ricard, could see them doing some special things. Now, the Giants getting Love, it wouldn't necessarily be because their run game wasn't very good last year. They actually were the 5th-ranked running team. A lot of that came from scrambles and Jackson Dart doing his thing. A lot of that came from pretty effective offensive line play in the run game. But one of the areas they struggled was yards after contact. They ranked just 29th. So you add Jeremiyah Love to a running game that already has Jackson Dart, that is pretty good at run blocking, and really the only thing they seemed to be missing last year was somebody who could make defenders miss. You could take that offense to new heights. Now, I don't think Love makes it past the Giants But if he did, you'd have the Browns and Commanders waiting there. I don't know if the Browns would move on from Quinshon Judkins or try to pair him with Love. But can you imagine if Love falls to the 7th overall pick and the Commanders take him and pair him with Jaden Daniels? Look out, NFL. But I don't think that's going to happen. Either way, wherever Love goes, that offense is going to be different next year. All right, we'll wrap up this episode with a little bit of news from around the league. First thing I want to get to is Dexter Lawrence, Giants defensive tackle, requesting a trade this past week. This to me seems like nothing more than a contract negotiating ploy. Lawrence is what, 28, 29? Plays a position where there's a lot of wear and tear. There's a lot of quick drop-off once you get to age 30 or approach age 30. He probably feels this is his last chance to get a big sum of money. And he might not be wrong there, but that's what I think this is about. I don't think he's unhappy in New York. This isn't a move where he just doesn't want to play for the Giants anymore, I don't think. Because think about this. Just from a football perspective, you've got John Harbaugh coming in after you've been with the Giants for 6 years, 7 years, where you've had nothing but underwhelming head coaches, and suddenly you're going to be upset when John Harbaugh comes in? You're not going to be excited about potentially finally having a winner or being on a team that's building a winner with Harbaugh at head coach, a good young quarterback in Jackson Dart? No, this is purely about football and being excited about the future. There's no way Lawrence would want to move on from the Giants. Now, I'm not saying he won't move on. I'm not saying the Giants won't actually end up trading him. And if he does get traded and gets his money, I'm sure he'll be happy to do that. I'm under no illusion that players in the NFL are as loyal to their teams as fans want them to be. But from the Giants' perspective, you can't trade Dexter Lawrence. He's part of the foundation of what you need to rebuild this team to get the Giants back to playing that hard-nosed, giant brand of football on both sides of the ball. And even though nose tackles, defensive tackles, they don't typically show up on the stat sheet, their impact can still be profound. And Dexter Lawrence, throughout his career, he's actually had some pretty decent numbers for a defensive tackle. I know last year he only had a half sack. The year before, though, he had 9. More so, you look at his ability to pressure. Going back to 2022, according to Warren Sharp, he has 108 QB pressures when lined up as a nose tackle. The next closest during that span has 32. So Lawrence is a huge difference maker on the inside. And he's had a profound impact on the Giants defense, whether they've been good or bad. Last year alone, when he wasn't on the field, the Giants were dead last against the pass in terms of yards per attempt. When he was on the field, they were 8th. Sack rate when he was off the field, 31st in the NFL. Sack rate when he was on, 9th in the NFL. And you can go back to the last 3 years and see pretty much the same impact. So if you want that D-line to continue to develop, if you want Brian Burns and Abdul Carter to keep getting one-on-ones off the edge, you're going to need Dexter Lawrence in the middle there. You're going to need him getting double teams, eating up blockers, making offenses and protection schemes have to make a choice between him and what the Giants can offer off both edges. And the other thing to consider is that if the Giants move on from Lawrence for draft picks, which is what it would be, one, their interior defensive line right now is not great behind Lawrence. And two, there's no one they're going to find in the draft that can make an impact like he can, certainly not right away. So this, to me, if they traded Lawrence, this would just be one step forward in terms of bringing in John Harbaugh and changing the culture of the organization, and then 2 steps back by getting rid of a player who I think is going to be integral to this team. And it would be a continuation of what we've seen over the last 15 years since the Giants won their last Super Bowl. You all realize why the Giants won in 2007 and 2011 against the Patriots, right? It was that defensive line. Kicking the you-know-what out of the Patriots' offensive line and out of Tom Brady. Shutting down 2 historical offenses. That was why they won. Secondarily, it was their offensive line. Helped them have a hard, tough-nosed run game. Kept Eli Manning upright. Look, I love Eli Manning as much as the next Giants fan, but it was the guys in the trenches that made those championships happen. Offensive line and defensive line. And really, since then, the Giants have gone in the opposite direction in terms of building their team. They've been building from the outside in. It's like they saw those 2 Super Bowl wins and said, all right, we've done it that way. Let's try to do the exact opposite now and see if we can win by doing that. And it's been pretty much a disaster. Because if you think about it, the quarterback position and the skilled players that the Giants have had, that hasn't been an issue for them. The back half of Eli Manning's career could have been a lot better if he had a good team around him. The quarterback position wasn't a problem. They had good receivers. They still had Victor Cruz for a little bit, Hakeem Nicks. Had a top 5 receiver in the league in Odell Beckham Jr., arguably the most exciting receiver in the game for a few years there when he was with the Giants. They had Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the game. Even the Daniel Jones era. Jones is not a top quarterback. I think we all know that, but you can certainly do a lot with him. And we saw multiple seasons, his rookie season and then again in 2022, where he was really good with the Giants. And then you saw it last year with the Colts. So skill positions haven't been a problem for the offense. They've probably been a little bit more of a problem for the defense over the last 15 years, but really what it comes down to is the Giants' defensive line, the Giants' offensive line, neither of them have been competitive for the most part. They've had some truly abominable years. And now it starts to look like they're putting all that back together. Offensive line does look okay. Still needs work, but it looks like it's okay. The defensive line has the start of potentially something special. Don't break it up for draft picks. For the unknown. Don't do it. Don't do it, Giants. Find a way to give Lawrence the money that he needs. The salary cap is only going up. I'm not a cap guru, but every team can find ways to move money around and have Dexter Lawrence's raise or whatever he gets from the Giants, have it not completely stymie their team-building activities moving forward. All right, the last bit of news we'll get to is the Raiders signing Kirk Cousins. No, this does not mean that they're not going to draft Fernando Mendoza. I think you're all aware of that. Clint Kubiak has said in recent weeks that he would prefer not to start a rookie quarterback right away. So that's what this creates the opportunity for. It gives them a veteran. It gives them a way to ease Fernando Mendoza in. And that might not be for, easing him in for a full season. They might not sit him on the bench for the entire 2026 season. They might just let Kirk Cousins run things for the first month, maybe 2 months of the season, and then work Mendoza in. Maybe it happens pretty soon. Maybe he does win the job out of training camp. But if he does so, it means that they made him compete for it, and then he earned it instead of just being handed that position. But Kirk Cousins, he has a history with Kubiak. He's a professional quarterback. He'll be able to move the offense. He'll be a great guy for Mendoza to learn from, right? Just how you go about preparing during an NFL season. Cousins isn't going into this thing like he did in Atlanta thinking he's going to be the starter, and then they surprised him with a first-round draft pick in Michael Penix. So he's clearly going in knowing my days are probably numbered, but I'm going to do what I can to get on the field and stay on the field. And he's probably going in knowing that a big part of his role is going to be coaching up Mendoza or helping Mendoza develop. But sort of a can't-lose situation for the Raiders, and not much more to it than that. That's it for today's show. Thank you all for listening. We are getting very close to the draft. Again, please check out footballfilmroom.com. Did a recent deep dive on Fernando Mendoza. Going to put something up on Ty Simpson shortly. We're breaking down Jeremiyah Love, all those Ohio State defenders, some of the other projected top picks in the NFL draft, some of the more dynamic players who do have a chance to be difference makers on their teams. But I think that's everything I have for today, and I'll talk to you all next time.